Taylor Sheridan started making a thing called Yellowstone. Perhaps at this stage I should say I'm dedicating this video to a bloke I've made friends with in America and yet have never actually met, but my gosh, we seem to be on the same mental playing field. There's a few people on YouTube that I've connected with, but this is to Mr. Wheels and Levers, and that's because he has never been a fan of Taylor Sheridan. Now, when Yellowstone first started, I thought I'd give it a run, and I quite liked it. Now, I have to confess that I might have liked it a tiny bit for the wrong reasons, and that's because of one of the characters in the show that really appealed to me. Now, I better not say too much because my wife might watch this, but one of the characters, Kevin Costner's daughter in the show, really appealed to me. What is it about bad girls? Anyway, I started watching Yellowstone. I really enjoyed it. Thought it was really great. So my mate in America, he's not a big fan of Taylor Sheridan and he didn't like Yellowstone, never really could understand it. I quite liked the show. So then what comes along is a spin-off called 1883. A few of my other friends in America, YouTube friends, are big on the gun scene, and by that I mean real, genuine, working, antique firearms from the Western era. And they were quite scathing about 1883. Now once again, on this led down a false path because I'm quite this Sam Elliott fan. So I watched 1883 and I really enjoyed it. I didn't look at it too deeply. I just liked Sam Elliott and I liked and so I enjoyed the show. So then what comes along is 1923. Things have changed slightly. You still awake, mate? You still awake? Things have changed slightly in the world sphere of things by the time 1923 comes along. And by that what I mean is Taylor Sheridan has bought the 4 Sixes Ranch in Texas. 4 Sixes Ranch in Texas sold for $350 million. When I was researching the highest paid Western star for the video, I found out that Taylor Sheridan had only had a personal income of only around 19 million. And yet he just bought the 4 Aces, the biggest ranch in Texas, let's just face it, the biggest ranch in the world, for 350 million. So then what I hear is Taylor Sheridan makes a slight confession that he is pumping out all these different shows from this franchise, which he calls the Yellowstone franchise, which was Yellowstone, season 5, season 5.5, season 6. Who's the big star they're going to get for season 6? 1883. Then 1923. Who can he get for 1923? He gets Harrison Ford. And then, of course, he gets another actress, who I'm a big fan of, Helen Mirren. Outstanding English actress. If you ever see the show, an English show, if you're American you might never have got to see this, it's called Prime Suspect. If they've ever remade it in another country, don't watch it. You have to see Helen Mirren playing a damaged, alcoholic police officer dedicated to her work, trying to hide her alcoholism and all her problems. And if you watch that Prime Suspect all the way to the very last season, the last season is almost unwatchable because of the shocking fall from grace that the police officer, Helen Dennison, you know, I never should do things from memory, but I do it all the time. Actually, it's probably a good test at my age to fight off, what's it called? Dementia. Because it's really almost unwatchable, this policewoman trying to function doing her job and hide her chronic alcoholism. So I've always been a big fan. Besides, she lives in London. She doesn't live too far from my mum, where my mum lives in London, so I sort of feel a bit connected to her. So I was keen as mustard to watch 1923. But finally, I'll now confess to my friend, Wheels and Levers, that I accept what you say. Taylor Sheridan says he's pumping out all these shows just to try and pay for the 4 Sixes Ranch that he's brought. So he's brought out another show about Jimmy from Yellowstone going off and working on the 4 Sixes Ranch called the 4 Sixes. He's dreaming up a show for the head ranch hand at Yellowstone to go back in time and be a sheriff in the Wild West. And then 1923, oh my gosh, did you watch it? Did you watch it to the end? It was shocking. How many things can we bring up? Can we bring up where he's on a tugboat that's been hit by a ghost ship? Please don't get me started. And it rolls over, and he's on the radio and he's going, Mayday, 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 on a radio. It's supposed to be 1923. I've already made a video about when the word Mayday was first used. Madre, French, help me. So there's so many things. The tugboat rolls over and they swim up and they climb on the heel of the tugboat. It's supposed to be a derelict tugboat being taken away for scrap. It would be covered in barnacles. It would be absolutely smothered in barnacles. Once upon a time, I was out on the police launch with a bunch of blokes, high summer, and we all dived overboard to have a bit of a swim. Yes, we were working, but we were practicing our swimming in case we ever needed to rescue. Anyway, we dived overboard off the police launch. We're swimming in the Port Adelaide River, and we come up to this big beacon, a channel marker, and a couple of us go to climb on it without realising the rungs are covered in barnacles. We are sliced, our hands and feet before we even do are sliced open with like razor blades. If they had tried to climb on that keel of that upturned boat, they would have been torn to pieces. And the list goes on and on of all the things in that 1923 that are just so wrong and so dreadful. At one point there's a sailor and he talks about Mussolini. It's 1923. Mussolini had been in power a matter of months. A sailor had been at sea. What on earth would he know about Mussolini and Italian politics that he talks all about it? A couple of times during the show, Helen Mirren and Harrison Ford have conversations that are just supposed to be conversations in passing, but so clearly they're bringing up topical things that Taylor Sheridan probably was flicking through his phone and saw, oh, that'll make a tidbit I'll just whack in the show, people won't know. And so one of those is the fact that it's 1923 and women are just being encouraged to shave their armpits. And she says about how, she doesn't mention the company, but it was Gillette. Gillette were looking at how on earth can they increase sales, and so they decide if they start an advertising campaign that women, they will create a woman's safety razor, and then they'll create this belief that it's unhygienic for a woman to have hair in her armpits, and if they can encourage this belief that women have to shave their armpits, then they will increase their sales. So that's true, that really happened. But is it really necessary that that is part of a conversation that Helen Mirren and Harrison Ford have in this show? And then, of course, Helen Mirren goes on to say, and what will be next? Will women start thinking that they don't need hair down below anymore? And so, of course, that's how things have changed so much these days that it's seen commonplace. But should we talk about this on my videos? Should we discuss this? I don't know. I leave you with one little tidbit, and that is in Australia. If you're not an Australian, I don't know if you know this, but in Australia, we have an island off the bottom of Australia that's called Tasmania, and we call how do I put this? When in the past, whenever we were talking about a woman down below, we always just used to say a map of Tasmania. It was her map of Tasmania. So go have a look at Tasmania. There's an expression you might not have heard of, the map of Tasmania. Not that there's too many maps of Australia around anymore. It's seen as unfashionable, I guess. Anyway, this was supposed to be about Taylor Sheridan, 1923. How dreadful I thought 1923 was, which is a shame, but that's what happens when you just want to make money to pay off your house. Can't blame a man for doing that, I guess. Well, cheers, till next time.